good evening, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday evening. Come on in to our virtual Bible class here at True Christian Fellowship Baptist Church. Come on in and let's talk about the Word of God. Good evening, everyone. It's a lot going on in our world, and so it's good for us to come together and talk about what's happening in our lives. All right, so we're going to give a few minutes for people to tune in because I understand people are busy. People can't make it every Wednesday evening, so and people take vacations, take time off. I do it myself, so I understand. So soon as we get somebody on in here, then we'll get started and get on out of your way. All right, y'all know me. I don't like to hold you long, but I like to make a strong point where you can understand what's going on. Good evening to my cousin Shirley. God bless you. Good to see you this evening. All right, we're going to wait on a few folk get in here. Then we're going to get started this evening. I hope you're doing all right. We all doing okay this way. Beautiful weather here in Chicago right now. We ain't got to run no air conditioner or nothing. So that's a big cut on that electric bill. That's a big help. We thank the Lord for that. But think later on this week, next week, they talking about us getting into the 90s. So we thank the Lord for the break right now. Good evening to my wife, our First Lady. God bless you, First Lady. Good to see you this evening. All right, we're going to get started. Today is your day. And so we're going to be talking about street corner messages. Whatever you want to talk about, whatever you want me to give a message concerning. Not a 30-minute, but just a couple minutes, we'll talk about something, whatever you want to talk about. Yes, y'all, okay. Y'all got some nice weather, but still need that air conditioner on. I hear you. I hear you. All right. Well, we just got the windows open, so we doing all right. Oh, all right. We just gonna do some street corner messages about whatever you want to talk about. So you two have the floor right now. So whatever y'all want to talk about, what's going on in your life, in the world, biblically, whatever question you've been studying in the Bible, reading about, let's talk about it. And I ain't gonna give you no long 30-minute sermon. I'm gonna try my best, Lord willing, to give you a short street corner message as you're passing by. So what y'all want to talk about today? Right. Anything. All right. Yep. It's a lot going on in our world. So where do we begin at? I don't know. So much going on. Where do we begin? But what we need to do most of all is continue to look to God, who is the author and finisher of our faith. Continue to look to Jesus Christ, Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. All right, this is y'all day. This is y'all day. Last week we talked about what I wanted to talk about, and for the past few weeks, a month, we've been talking about what I want to talk about. So now this is your day. Let's talk about it. Let's see if we can iron it out. Get a biblical answer according to the word of God to what's going on in your life, in our lives, in the world. All right. So, what you got for me? All right. I know I can depend on my cousin Shirley. You say you just learned that only the southern kingdom returned to Jerusalem after the exile. I thought and never heard that the other 10 tribes did not return. Can you explain? Wow. That, excuse me. That's a good one there, Cousin Shirley. I didn't even know that myself. That the southern kingdom. Where was you reading that at? We'll go to it. The southern kingdom after the exile, after they was put out by Nebuchadnezzar. Also, some of them were put out by King Xerxes. So they were put into exile by different kings. Some of them under Nebuchadnezzar, some of them under King Xerxes. So different ones went into exile. So where you reading it, cousin Shirley, so I can study up on it myself. Good evening, Pastor White. God bless you, my brother. Good to see you this evening. We got just street corner messages today where we talk about whatever you want to talk about. And so maybe you can help us out. Cousin Shirley, she learned that only the southern kingdom returned to Jerusalem after the exile. She said she had never heard that the other 10 tribes did not return. All right, so can't give you no answer to that, Shirley, right now. I don't want to speculate, so let me know where you reading that so I can check it out and get back to you on that one now. Where you reading that? Where you studying it? Where do we find it? Because like I said, they were put into exile under Nebuchadnezzar. Then they were also put in exile under King Xerxes. All right. Oh, it's not in the Bible. You said the southern kingdom went to Babylon and the northern kingdom to Assyria. And it was only the southern kingdom that the Bible speaks about. Oh, okay. Y'all discussed that in Sunday school. Oh, okay. Yeah. And you know, some of that time frame and things that were going on can be almost conflicting because when you read about um yeah, okay, I got you. Kingdom, not king. The southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. All right. The southern kingdom went to Babylon and the northern kingdom to Assyria. Okay. And so when you read in the Bible under Ezra and Nehemiah, Daniel, all of them guys, Esther, they were in exile under different kings. And I think the most important thing as we look at all of these different kingdoms that were in exile is why were they put in exile? And it goes back to they had sinned against God. Each time that God allowed the enemy to overtake his people, the same denominator happened each time. They sinned against God. So regardless of whether it's the southern kingdom or the northern kingdom, it's all about us sinning against God, causing our enemies to have power over us when God has given us power over them. But then you mess up, he let them take over. You said during Bible study today, our associates say to speak of the North Kingdom as the 10 lost tribes of Israel. They talk about them as the 10 lost tribes of Israel. You could say that the lost tribes because of what they did. But then here come along Jesus Christ, who brought us all back together under that tribe of Judah under David. So he brought us together. His tribe, regardless of the others, Jesus, the tribe that he was put under, is the only one that God said would never perish. All of these other tribes and kingdoms, northern and southern, will perish, but there's only one tribe that will stand forever. His kingdom is forever. And that's the one that Jesus and David was up under. So why are you having computer issues? Is everybody else doing all right? Is that Pastor White or is that me? He has computer issues. That old devil messing with him. But as we were saying, uh, all these other kingdoms, northern and southern tribes, yes, they are all will be lost, but only one will stand, that tribe of Judah that Jesus is in. He said he's buffering. How's everybody else? Everybody else all right? Pastor White is buffering. So that's all. That's the best I could speak on that, cousin Shirley, is to be a part of that tribe that Jesus is in. His tribe, that tribe of Judah, will last forever. All other tribes and kingdom will definitely come to an end, whether through loss, whether through exile, however, but only one, that kingdom of Christ will stand. All right. All right, here we go. Ezekiel 23, the two sisters, the two northern, which is the northern and southern kingdom. Ezekiel 23, let's go over there to Ezekiel 23. Let's look at that. All right. And here in Ezekiel 23, all right, any special verse? Or are we just going to start from the beginning looking at the Ezekiel 23? The Son of Man, there were two women, the two daughters of one mother, and they committed whoredoms in Egypt. They committed whoredoms in their youth. There were their breasts pressed, and they bruised the teats of their virginity. Oh, man. Now, this here is already going to what we said earlier. It's all because of sin. God ain't put nobody in exile, nobody in slavery without it being their own fault. So these two women, he said, they had committed whoredom in Egypt. And you remember at one time, the children of Israel did not want to leave Egypt. And then when God delivered them, got them out of Egypt, they wanted to go back. And then I think it was up on later on again, after they had went into the promised land, into the land of Canaan, I think under Jeremiah or somebody, they wanted to go back to Egypt again. And so it's our own fault. So starting here in verse 4, and the names of them were Aholah and Aholabah, her sister. They were mine. They bare sons and daughters. They were his. They were in Egypt, and we know that God called his children out of Egypt. He's calling us out of, away from the enemy. We learning the ways of the enemy, and the Bible said, learn not the ways of the heathen. And so these two women, they were God's son. They bear sons and daughters for God. But then he said one of them, Aloha, played the harlot in verse 5. And she doted on her lovers on the Assyrians, her neighbor. In other words, that dotted word is lust. She lusted for them Assyrians, her neighbors, instead of her sister, instead of the husband that God had given her, her own people. And they were clothed in verse 6 with blue, captains and rulers, all of them desirable young men, horsemen riding upon horses. So she liked that beauty of the Assyrians, high clothes. And that's what we like today, the beauty of money, prestige, fame. And therefore we stray away from God. And so verse 7, she committed her whoredoms with them, with all them that were chosen men of Assyria, and with all on whom she lusted, with all their idols she defiled herself. This is somebody that's supposed to be a child of God and supposed to raise sons and daughters for God. And now she's gone after the Assyrians, the heathen. And then God looked like in verse 8, verse 8, it said, neither left she her hold'ems brought from Egypt. In other words, sound like God got her out of Egypt, out of the land of the heathen, out of slavery. But she held on to the whoredoms. For in her youth they lay with her. They bruised the breast of her virginity and poured their whoredom upon her. Too many times God delivers us and we still find ourselves holding on to what he has delivered us from. That's our fault. Even though he's talking about two women, but he's talking about his children, how we hold on to the evils of the world. Egypt at that time was considered the big, beautiful place that everybody want to be, where the money is at, where all the fame and everything is at. And we find ourselves running back to Egypt, running back to the Assyrians, lusting for what God has delivered us from. And then in verse 10, he goes on and talks about how they discovered her nakedness. They took her sons and her daughters. See, you ain't supposed to let everybody know everything about you. You trust people too much. And she trusted them too much. That's what that means when it said they discovered her nakedness. They knew her secrets. You ain't supposed to let everybody know everything, show them everything. And because she was too trustworthy with them, they took her sons and daughters and slew her with the sword. And she became famous among women, for they had executed judgment upon her. That's so true, First Lady. She revealed too much. That's what happened to King Hezekiah. If you read the story of King Hezekiah, he was sick. And when God recovered him from his sickness, then here comes some people from Babylon with some gifts. And they came with gifts to his palace, and he showed them everything in his palace. He didn't hold back nothing. He was so happy they came to see him. And then when they left, then Isaiah, the prophet, came to him and said, what did you show them? He said, everything. And then Isaiah began to tell him, you shouldn't have did that, because they're going to come back and take all of your substance and your sons. And that's what happened. So we revealed too much. What you say, Cousin Shirley? You read later that God, the youngest sister, was worse than the oldest. and God punished her even worse. That's why I can't understand why other 10 tribes will not return from the exile in Assyria unless this isn't about the two kingdoms. Right. She got punished. I understand what you're saying. Right. But that's what Jesus also says. He that knows better shall be whipped with more stripes than he that does not know. And so that's understandable. The youngest sister was worse. She knew better. So that's what God is looking at us. We gonna reap what we sow. So you gonna do more evil, you gonna have to be punished with what you did, by what you did. But I don't know what about these 10 tribes. So I don't know. But I'll look more into this, whether this is talking about the two tribes of Israel or talking about someone else. So I'll look deeper into it. Do you think this is reference to the two kingdom of Israel as a nation? I would say that more so than the 10 tribes. I would say this is the two kingdom of Israel that have went in, that God called out of Israel. Because, Israel always kind of been separate. One on this side, one on that side. Even when they got to the land of Canaan, some were separated from the others. So it always been brothers and each other going against each other. Jacob and Esau. So you always got them two kingdoms, them two brothers, them two nations. The Bible said that Jacob and Esau were two nations, and them two brothers is always against one another. And so it is even in our own household. Jesus said, our foes are those of our own household, meaning our enemies are those of our own household. And so here God has called his children out of Egypt as he called Jesus under Joseph and Mary. He called them out of Egypt. He called Moses and the Hebrew children out of Egypt. And so we always find ourselves under Egypt. Egypt, like I said, represents the beauty of the world, the lusts of the world. And we always find ourselves caught up in the lusts of this world, and God calling us out of it, out of our whoredom, running after riches and other things, running after the lust of the world. That's why Jesus come along and said, what good is it to gain the whole world and lose your soul? And so this is what this is all about, in showing us that God had something great for us, a promised land. But here we are, like in Ezekiel, running after the world and find ourselves right back into slavery. The Bible says he's that a servant of sin. If you're a servant of sin, if you sin, you're a servant of sin. You're running after the foolishness of the world. So yeah, I'll look into this Ezekiel 23, the 10 kingdoms. All right. That's interesting. Ezekiel 23. Let me write that down. All right. And I'm going to check it out. Because, like I said, you read in Daniel, they were in slavery. You go back to Esther, they were in slavery. You go to What is that? Right here in Ezekiel. So these different places, Ezra and Nehemiah, dealing with the God's people in exile, in a bad position, unable to build the kingdom back because there were some evil kings like Nebuchadnezzar who wouldn't allow the children of Israel to rebuild. But then there was another king who came after him, and I can't remember his name, but he allowed them to rebuild. So God has always made provisions for us, even when we sin against him. That's a good God. For God so loved the world. All right, anything else? Anything else? Anything else you want to talk about? This is interesting. These two kingdoms. All right. The north and the south. Anything else? And that's what's going on in our world. Nation against nation. Kingdom against kingdom. What you say, it make me think when I heard that about the northern kingdom did not return from exile in all these years. I have been on this faith journey for close to 30 years, right? They didn't make it out of exile. But like I said, a lot of them was destroyed. Just like a lot of them didn't make it out of the wilderness. They all went into the wilderness to go into the promised land. But all of a sudden, because of their wickedness, many of them, all the ones 21 years old, 22 and over, didn't make it out of the wilderness. That's an exile. God has always made provision for us, but our sin has kept us tied into the wilderness, tied into exile, tied up in a bad place, all because of our own bad choices. But thank God for Jesus Christ. As long as you look to him, there is a kingdom that will last forever, that will not be lost in the wilderness, that will not be lost in exile. All right. First Lady said, what do we do when our faith is wavering? Good evening, Sister Deborah Hutchison. God bless you. Good to see you this evening. Okay, what do we do when our faith is wavering? Now, David was under Babylon. He was up under Nebuchadnezzar. Okay. Daniel, I think he started under Nebuchadnezzar because him and the three Hebrew boys. But he lasted longer than Nebuchadnezzar. So the Assyrians, you might check out Esther and Mordecai. They might be under the Syrians, but Daniel was under Babylon. But why is our faith wavering? What do we do when our faith is wavering? Well, first of all, why does our faith waver? That means it's going back and forth. It's strong and then it's weak. Why is it wavering? Well, one of the biggest things that comes against us when we walk out on faith, that's right. Why is it a struggle? It's because of fear of the unknown. when the unknown is before us and we don't know the outcome, we find ourselves struggling. When we don't know how God gonna work this thing out, we find ourselves struggling. So that's why the Bible said God has not given us a spirit of fear. In other words, no. You push that old fear aside. It makes you become irrational. It makes you start thinking about, okay, God, maybe this gonna happen. Maybe that's gonna happen. No. That's irrational thinking. You don't know what's gonna happen. But he has given us a spirit of power, of love, and of a sound mind. And that means we got to trust him when we don't know what's going on. You got to trust him and wait on him. When you don't know, you got to trust him. Don't waver. Hang on in there. The enemy is going to mess with your mind and play up on your mind. But you got to hang on in there and trust God and don't waver. Because faith, let's look at faith. Faith said it is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. Though there are two powerful words that he just gave you to stand on. The first one, he said, faith is the substance. That means God gonna give you some kind of substance to let you know he working it out. Hang on in there. He ain't gonna give you the full picture, but he gonna give you some substance. And then he says it is the evidence of something you can't see. I don't know how it's gonna turn out, but he's gonna give you some evidence of how it's gonna turn out if you just trust in him. It's just like when you writing a sermon, and as you write this sermon, preachers know about this. Many times you wonder, have I written the right sermon? Is this what God wants me to give to the people? We go through that. And then all of a sudden he gives them some kind of substance or evidence. You hear somebody say something that's part of your sermon. Wow, that strengthens you. It didn't give you the full picture, but it gives you enough strength to keep standing on faith and go on anyhow. If you read the story of Gideon, Gideon was wavering in his faith. God said, I am with you, mighty man of Galilee. But he still was wavering. And so God gave him some substance, some evidence. He went into the enemy's camp and he heard somebody say, I had a dream that somebody come in and took over. And they say, who was that? And they said, that's Gideon. See, God would give you some substance and evidence. He hadn't won the battle. He hadn't even started fighting or anything. But will you trust the substance and the evidence that God give you to stop you from wavering and keep standing? That's what we got to do. Stand on the word of God. Not on what you're thinking. Fear and all of them make you think irrational. Wait on the Lord. Wait on the Lord, and he'll give you some substance and some evidence. All right. Anybody else got anything they want to talk about? These are our street corner messages today that we're looking at. We're talking about whatever you want to talk about. Cousin Sherry says, somebody wrote today, we must continue to fight in the belief that Jesus is bigger and more powerful. We must continue to fight in the belief. We must continue to fight. Fight what? What is they talking about fighting? Fight the enemy? Yes. Fight the white man? No. Because Paul said we fight not against flesh and blood. So this thing is bigger than racism, It's bigger than politics. So we fight not against flesh and blood. And yes, we must continue to believe that Jesus is bigger and more powerful than what this world is doing. He's setting back for the right time. He's going to conquer. He said, in the world you shall have tribulation. In the world you're going to have struggles. But he said, be of good cheer, for I have overcome. So he knows the outcome, y'all. He's bigger. He knows the outcome, so he just letting them go on. You ever know about with your children? You see them doing something and they don't see you. And so they think they getting away just because you ain't saying nothing to them. But you sitting back watching them the whole time, knowing at the right time you gonna get them. And so that's what's going on in our world. Jesus just sitting back watching. The world think it's getting away, but he's gonna bring it to an end at the right time. What you said, when fear comes, fight in our belief that Jesus is bigger. That's right. Jesus is bigger. That's why I like that saying. Don't tell God how big your problems are. No, tell your problems how big your God is. That's what we got to do, switch things around. That's what Elijah did for his servant. His servant woke up and saw all of those soldiers out there ready to get Elijah. And so he was afraid. He ran back in, called Elijah. What we gonna do? What we gonna do? All of them soldiers out there. Elijah was all calm. And he said to him, they that be with us are more than they that be with them. In other words, what John said years later, he said, greater is he that is in us than he that is in the world. And that's what we got to stand on. They that be with us is more than they that be with them. Greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. Our God is bigger. So don't tell God how big your problems are. Tell your problems how big your God is. That's what Elijah did. He said, open his eyes. He opened his eyes and he saw all of those chariots of fire waiting to help out Elijah. That's what Jesus did for Peter in the Garden of Gethsemane. Peter pulled his sword ready to fight. Jesus told him, put your sword up, buddy. I got 12 legions of angels that I can call at any time. They standing around here, buddy, waiting for the word. So yes, those that with us is bigger. We got to remember that when we get in a squeeze. We got to stand like the 3 Hebrew boys who said, even if he don't deliver us, I ain't bowing to the world. That's what we got to learn to do. To not let death or anything separate us from the love of God. All right, we got a few more minutes. Anybody else got something they want to talk about this evening? This has gotten pretty interesting here. I love it. I love it. I love it. Anything else before we get out of here? These are street corner messages. Talk about whatever you want to talk about. All right. Yes. Anybody else got anything? No. You keep talking because sometimes you saying something that somebody else want to say, but they don't have the courage that you have to speak up. You are our Peter in this here situation. You will speak up. And so I thank God for your spirit of speaking up. So you keep talking because you're not just talking for yourself, you're talking for others. And then I'm going to take you on a little further. It's not you talking anyway. What did Jesus tell his disciples? You ain't the one talking. It's the Father who's talking through you. So let him use you. Thank you, Cousin Shirley. Anything else? Anybody? Anybody? Anything else? All right. It's been beautiful. It's been one. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. If not, then, all right, we're going to get ready to get out of here. I thank you all. Thank you. Thank you all. Made you laugh. All right. Amen. All right. Thank you, everyone. Remember to trust the process and keep God first. You got to learn to trust the process. That'll help you stop all of that wavering in your faith, because the enemy comes with fear to put fear in your mind to make you waver. No, you stand. Faith is a substance and evidence, and you look for that substance and evidence. God gonna show you. He ain't gonna leave you in the blind. Thank you to our first lady for being with us this evening. Thank you to my cousin Shirley. God bless you. Thank you for being with us this evening. Sister Deborah Hutchison, God bless you, my sister. Thank you for coming and being with us this evening. And Pastor White, he had computer troubles, but we thank you, Pastor White, for trying to get in. God bless you, my brother. And if I miss anybody, charge it to my eyes and not my heart. Thank you to you all. All right. God bless you. Thank you, Cousin Shirley. And I'm going to look into that Ezekiel 23, those north and south kingdoms and everything. All right. Y'all be blessed. Trust the process and keep God